The invitation arrived on a Tuesday in March, but it was the invitation I didn't receive that changed my life. My granddaughter Sophie was getting married. 34 years old, brilliant architect, marrying a wonderful man named James. I should have heard about this from my daughter Jennifer directly, should have received a phone call with excitement in her voice, should have been the first person she told. Instead, I found out through a casual comment from my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who mentioned that Jennifer had invited her to the wedding. Mrs. Patterson, who had known Jennifer for maybe 3 years. Mrs. Patterson, who had never babysat my granddaughter or attended her kindergarten graduation or been there on her 18th birthday. My name is Eleanor. I am 71 years old. I'm a retired nurse who spent 41 years working in hospital cardiac units, helping families through some of the most difficult moments of their lives. I raised 3 children on a nurse's salary after my husband died when I was 48. I put myself through night classes to become a supervisor. I have always been strong, always been independent, always been the one people came to when they needed help. But that Tuesday afternoon, standing in my kitchen reading Mrs. Patterson's casual comment about the wedding, I felt something break inside me. I called Jennifer immediately. "Hi, Mom," she said, her tone guarded. "What's up?" "I just found out about Sophie's wedding from Mrs. Patterson."
"Patterson, from the neighbor. Why didn't you tell me?" There was a pause. I could hear her sighing on the other end. "Mom, we've been meaning to talk to you about that." "About what? About inviting me to my own granddaughter's wedding? Because Sophie called me last month and asked me to help her with some design elements for the reception. She called me, Jennifer. She asked for my help." "Yes, I know she did. That's complicated." "Complicated how?" My voice was rising, but I couldn't help it. 43 years of being a good mother, of sacrificing, of being strong, and now I was being excluded from my granddaughter's wedding. "Mom, listen, it's not that you're not invited. It's just that the wedding is going to be very specific, very exclusive. Sophie and James want only their closest inner circle there, and frankly, with everything that's been going on between you and me, we thought maybe it would be easier if you didn't come." "Easier for whom?" "Jennifer, I haven't done anything to you. I have been nothing but supportive. I watched Sophie while you worked. I helped raise her. And now you're telling me I shouldn't come to her wedding?" "Mom, I'm not saying you shouldn't come. I'm saying it might be uncomfortable. There are people there from my business, important people. And if you're there, it might be awkward because everyone knows about the situation between us." "There is no situation between us. There's a daughter who's being cold and distant, and the mother who's trying to understand why. There's a mother who's been critical of my life choices for the past 10 years. There's a mother who didn't approve of me leaving my first career to pursue something more fulfilling. There's a mother who acted disappointed when I married Michael. All true. I had been critical. I had thought she was making mistakes. I had worried constantly that she was throwing away opportunities. And maybe I had been wrong. But being wrong about some things didn't mean I deserved to be excluded from my granddaughter's wedding. Jennifer, I'm sorry if I hurt you. I truly am. But I'm asking you now, as your mother, to include me. Sophie wants me there. I know she does. She called me about the decorations. She was excited. Sophie is a people pleaser. She doesn't want to disappoint you. Then why would including me disappoint her? Why would having her grandmother at her wedding disappoint her? Jennifer's voice became colder. I'm not having this conversation. The decision is made. If you want to be helpful, you can send a gift. That would be appropriate. And she hung up. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone, unable to process what had just happened. My daughter had just told me I wasn't welcome at my granddaughter's wedding, and when I tried to argue, she hung up on me. This was not the relationship I thought we had. I didn't tell anyone about the phone call.
I didn't mention it to my other children, didn't bring it up to my friends. I was too ashamed, too embarrassed, and too confused to talk about it. What I did do was contact Sophie directly. "Grandma," she said happily when she answered the phone, "I was just thinking about you. Did you get my email about the reception flowers? I have some ideas I wanted your input on." "Sophie, I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Of course, Grandma. What's wrong? You sound sad." "Am I invited to your wedding?" There was a pause, a long pause that told me everything I needed to know. "Grandma, Sophie, just answer me directly." "Yes, you're invited, but Mom said, she said it might be easier if you didn't come because of the tension between you two. She said it might be uncomfortable for everyone." My heart broke hearing my granddaughter apologize for something that wasn't her fault. "Sophie, listen to me very carefully. I don't want you to worry about the tension between your mother and me. That's not your responsibility. But if you truly want me there, if you really want your grandmother at your wedding, I will be there. Because nothing is more important to me than celebrating this day with you." "Grandma, I do want you there. I do. But I also don't want to upset Mom. She's been so stressed about the wedding." "Sweetheart, your job is not to manage your mother's emotions. Your job is to be happy and to have the people you love celebrating with you. If you want me there, I will be there." "I want you there," Sophie said quietly. "I really do." After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and cried, not because I was sad about my daughter, though I was, but because I was sad for my granddaughter, who at 34 years old was still trying to manage her mother's feelings instead of celebrating her own life. I had done that to her, not intentionally, but I had been the example. I had been the daughter who tried to manage my own mother's emotions, and now Jennifer was doing the same thing to Sophie. It was a cycle of emotional responsibility that should have ended with me, but instead, I had passed it on. The wedding was in May, a beautiful ceremony in a garden venue overlooking the ocean, and I was there. I got a haircut and styling at the salon. I bought a beautiful dress in soft blue, elegant but not showy. I prepared a generous gift and arranged to have it sent to the newly weddings registry. I even drove to the florist and personally picked out a bouquet for Sophie. White roses and baby's breath, classic and beautiful. When I arrived at the venue, my daughter Jennifer was standing near the entrance with her husband Michael. Her face, when she saw me, went through a series of emotions: surprise, anger, and then calculation, as she realized that making a scene would be worse than simply tolerating my presence. "Mom," she said tightly, "I didn't expect you to come." "Sophie invited me. I'm her grandmother. Of course I came." "This is inappropriate. What's inappropriate is excluding family members from important celebrations." Michael, Jennifer's husband, touched his wife's arm gently. "Jennifer, let's not do this today. It's Sophie's day." Jennifer looked like she wanted to argue further, but other guests were starting to arrive, and she couldn't make a bigger scene without drawing attention. So she simply turned away and walked toward the ceremony space, leaving me standing alone. But I wasn't alone for long. Sophie's father, Jennifer's ex-husband, my other son, David, appeared at my side and took my arm. "Eleanor, I'm so glad you made it," he said warmly. "Come, let me show you to your seat." David had always been kind to me, even after he and Jennifer divorced. He had remarried a lovely woman named Carol, and they had a daughter together. His new family treated me with more warmth than Jennifer ever had since the divorce. "Thank you for coming, Eleanor," Carol said when she saw me, giving me a genuine hug. "Sophie has been hoping you'd be here." I sat with David, Carol, and their daughter Megan. I watched Sophie walk down the aisle. She looked radiant, happy, and when our eyes met, she gave me a special smile. That smile said, "I'm glad you're here." That smile made it worth everything. The ceremony was beautiful. The reception was elegant. And throughout the evening, I made a point to stay gracious, to congratulate the couple warmly, to be supportive and lovely, and exactly the kind of grandmother anyone would want at their wedding. I even danced with Sophie, and she held me close and whispered, "Thank you for coming, Grandma. I know Mom was upset, but I'm so happy you're here." "Always," I said. "I will always be here for you." What I didn't know was that my decision to come to that wedding, against Jennifer's wishes, would set off a chain of events that would completely change my life. 2 weeks after the wedding, I received a phone call from my lawyer, Mr. Harrison. "Mrs. Eleanor, I need to see you regarding some legal matters. Is this week possible?" I went to his office on a Wednesday afternoon. Mr. Harrison was a man in his 60s, someone I had hired to handle my estate planning about 5 years earlier. I had a will, a power of attorney, and various other documents organized. Everything was in order. "Eleanor, I'll be direct," Mr. Harrison said once we were seated in his office. "I've received a communication from your daughter Jennifer regarding your will." I felt something cold move through my chest. "What kind of communication?" "She has formally requested that I alter the terms of your will, specifically regarding the distribution of your assets after your death. She's claiming that the will as currently written is the result of duress or undue influence from your other children." I couldn't speak for a moment. I just stared at him. "She's claiming that I was subjected to undue influence regarding my own will by my own children?" "That's her claim. She has suggested that your son David and your son Richard have pressured you to leave a larger portion of your estate to them, excluding her from what she believes is her fair share." "That's completely false. My will is divided equally among my 3 children. Everyone gets the same amount." "I know. I'm aware of the distribution. Eleanor, I'm telling you this because I want you to be prepared. Your daughter is not happy with the current arrangement, and she's indicated that she plans to contest the will after your death. She's also threatening legal action regarding your current assets." "What does she want?" Mr. Harrison hesitated. "She wants me to contact her immediately regarding a proposed new will in which she is the primary beneficiary and the executor of your estate. She claims that the current arrangement is unfair because you're allegedly closer to David and Richard." I sat back in my chair, shocked. "Did she say that explicitly?" "She did. And she made some concerning statements about your mental competency, suggesting that you might be in cognitive decline and therefore unable to make sound decisions about your own assets." "I'm perfectly mentally competent. I work as a volunteer at the hospital. I manage my own finances. I'm in excellent health." "I know this, and I believe you. But Eleanor, I wanted to give you a heads up because your daughter is clearly preparing for something. I wanted you to know what she's planning before she escalates." I left that office feeling like I was in a dream, or a nightmare to be more precise. My daughter, whom I had given everything to, was now trying to manipulate my will and planning to claim I was mentally incompetent. I called a family meeting. I invited David, Richard, and Jennifer. I also invited their spouses. I held the meeting in my home, in my living room, on a Saturday afternoon when everyone could attend. When Jennifer arrived and saw that everyone else was there, her face tightened. "Why did you call everyone here?" she asked coldly. "Sit down, Jennifer. I want to talk about something." We all sat in the living room, David with his wife Carol, Richard with his wife Patricia, and Jennifer with her husband Michael, who looked extremely uncomfortable about being there. "I'm going to be direct," I said. "Jennifer, you have contacted my attorney with false claims about my mental competency and demanded that he alter my will to give you primary control of my assets. Is this true?" Jennifer's face flushed. She looked at her husband, who was staring at the floor. "Mom, this isn't the appropriate forum." "Is it true?" "It's not that simple. Answer the question, Jennifer. Yes or no. Did you contact my attorney and make these demands?" "Yes." The room was silent. Even her husband, Michael, looked shocked, though I suspected he knew about this plan.
May I ask why? I asked, keeping my voice calm even though I was shaking with anger inside. Because it's unfair, Jennifer said, her voice rising. You love David and Richard more than you love me. You've always loved them more, and you're planning to leave your estate to them when you could be leaving it to someone who actually appreciates what you've done. I'm leaving my estate equally to all three of you. Each of you will receive exactly the same amount. There is nothing unfair about that. It is unfair because you spend more time with them. You have a closer relationship with them. You even went to Sophie's wedding against my wishes, which proves that you side with David's family over mine. David spoke up. Jennifer, that's not fair. You excluded Mom from Sophie's wedding. She had every right to be there. She had no right to defy me. She had no right to undermine my authority as a mother. Richard put his hand up. Jennifer, that's ridiculous. Eleanor didn't defy you. She respected Sophie's wishes. Jennifer stood up. I don't have to sit here and be attacked by everyone. I was simply trying to ensure that Mom's assets were distributed fairly, that I got what I deserved. What you deserved? I said quietly. Jennifer, I have always given you what you deserved. I've given you my time, my energy, my financial support when you needed it. I've been there for you your entire life. And how have you repaid me? By accusing me of mental incompetency? By trying to manipulate my will? By excluding me from family celebrations? By making me feel like a burden in my own family? You are a burden, Mom. You always have been. You're needy and demanding, and you never respect my boundaries. My other children gasped. Michael put his face in his hands. Eleanor, I'm so sorry, he said quietly. I didn't know she was going to say things like this. Jennifer, I think you should leave, I said quietly. Fine, I'm leaving, and when you die, I'm contesting the will. I'm going to prove that you were mentally incompetent and that David and Richard manipulated you, and I'm going to get what's rightfully mine. She left the house, with Michael following her, apologizing as he went. When they were gone, David came and sat beside me. Eleanor, are you okay? I wasn't okay. My daughter had just told me I was a burden. She had threatened to contest my will and had already tried to manipulate my lawyer into changing the documents. She was planning legal action against me and my other children. And the worst part was that I understood where this had come from. I had created this. By being a certain kind of mother, by sacrificing too much, by not setting boundaries, by making my children responsible for my happiness, I had contributed to Jennifer becoming someone who felt so empty that she thought she could fill herself by taking from me. I need to change my will, I said finally. What do you mean? David asked. I need to change my will, not because Jennifer is right, but because I'm tired of allowing her to have this kind of power over me. If she's going to contest it anyway, then let her contest it. What are you going to do? I'm going to leave my assets to those who have loved me without condition. Carol, you have been more of a daughter to me than my own daughter has been. I'm leaving a significant portion of my assets to you. Richard, you've always been there for me. Patricia, you've welcomed me into your family. David, you've been nothing but kind. I'm restructuring everything to reflect who actually deserves my gratitude. Richard stood up. Eleanor, I don't think you should make hasty decisions right now. You're upset. I'm not upset. I'm clear for the first time in my life. I've spent 71 years trying to be what everyone else needed me to be. It's time I was what I needed myself to be. I met with Mr. Harrison the following Tuesday. Eleanor, I'm going to be honest with you. What you're proposing is going to anger your daughter even more. If you leave the bulk of your estate to your other children and exclude Jennifer, she will absolutely contest the will. There will be a lengthy legal battle. I understand.
Are you sure? Because this could be contentious. There could be public proceedings. There could be details about your family made public that you might not want exposed. Mr. Harrison, my daughter has already threatened to contest my will, has already accused me of mental incompetency, has already tried to manipulate my documents. What more can she do? At least this way, my actions will match my truth. I will have made a conscious decision about what happens to my assets based on who has actually earned them. What about guilt? He asked gently. Are you prepared for what you might feel, knowing that you've deliberately excluded your own daughter from your will? I thought about this carefully. I spent 43 years raising Jennifer. I spent 18 years since she became an adult trying to maintain a relationship with her, even as she pushed me away. I spent my life trying to be enough for her, and it was never enough. At some point, a mother has to accept that she cannot fill the emptiness in her adult child's heart. At some point, a mother has to say, I have given enough. I have to take care of myself now. And the guilt? The guilt, Mr. Harrison, I'm prepared to live with, because the alternative is to keep sacrificing myself for someone who will never appreciate that sacrifice. And I've learned, finally, at 71 years old, that I'm not responsible for fixing my daughter's broken sense of self-worth. Mr. Harrison was quiet for a long time. All right, he said finally, let's do this properly. I'll draw up new documents. I want to make sure everything is done correctly so that when Jennifer inevitably contests, we have everything documented and witnessed and completely legally sound. The new will was completed in June. I left my house to David and Carol. They had been helping me maintain it anyway, and David had always loved it. I left my investment portfolio divided among my grandchildren, David's children, Richard's children, and Sophie. I left some money to Carol, to Patricia, and to my other son-in-law Michael, though not to Jennifer. And I left almost nothing to Jennifer, except for one thing. My journals. I had kept journals my entire life. 40 volumes of my innermost thoughts, my struggles, my victories, my love for my children. I left those journals to Jennifer with a note that explained why. The note read, Jennifer, I am leaving you my journals because I want you to understand who I was before I became mother. I want you to see that I was a person with dreams and struggles and fears. I want you to see that I loved you, always, even when you couldn't feel that love. I want you to see that my life was more than being your mother, and I want you to understand that long after I'm gone, you can know me through these words. I am not leaving you my house or my investments because you made it clear that what you wanted from me was not love or connection, but my assets. Well, here are my assets in the form of my truth. Spend them wisely. With hope for your understanding, your mother, Eleanor. Jennifer received the news about the will change from her lawyer, not from me. Mr. Harrison had to inform her as she was listed in the original documents. I expected her to call me immediately, but she didn't. Instead, 3 weeks later, I received a letter. It was from a law firm. Jennifer was suing me for undue influence, claiming that David and Richard had manipulated me into changing my will. She was also claiming that I was mentally unfit and that the new documents were invalid. She was asking for my assets to be frozen pending the outcome of the case. I felt sick when I read the letter. My daughter was taking me to court. My own daughter was suing her mother. The case went to trial in November, 6 months after I changed my will. The courtroom was cold and sterile. My daughter sat on one side with her lawyer, a young man in an expensive suit who seemed hungry for a fight. I sat on the other side with Mr. Harrison, who looked calm and prepared. The judge was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that didn't miss anything. Jennifer's lawyer called her as the first witness. Ms. Jennifer, can you describe your relationship with your mother? My mother has never been supportive of my life choices. She has been critical and judgmental.
She has made me feel that nothing I do is ever good enough. And after I went through a difficult period in my life, instead of supporting me, she excluded me from my granddaughter's wedding. And what was your motivation for initiating this lawsuit? To protect myself. My mother has clearly been manipulated by my brothers into excluding me from the family. She has changed her will to give them everything and give me nothing. That is not the will of a woman in her right mind. That is the will of a woman who has been influenced by people who wanted to isolate her. Mr. Harrison cross-examined Jennifer carefully. Miss Jennifer, isn't it true that you contacted your mother's lawyer and asked him to alter her will in your favor? I was asking him to ensure that the existing will was fair. You asked him to make you the primary beneficiary, didn't you? I suggested that might be more appropriate. And when he refused, you claimed your mother was mentally incompetent. Isn't that correct? Jennifer didn't answer. I'm going to remind you that you're under oath, Miss Jennifer. When your mother's lawyer refused to alter her will on your behalf, you claimed she was mentally unfit. Isn't that correct? Yes, Jennifer said quietly.
And did you believe your mother was mentally unfit at that time? I wasn't sure. You weren't sure, but you claimed it anyway. I was concerned. You were concerned. Yet your mother has worked as a volunteer at the hospital since your father's death. She manages her own finances. She maintains her own home. She drives. She travels. She reads voraciously. Are any of those signs of mental incompetence? Not necessarily, but... And the real issue, Miss Jennifer, is that when your mother refused to give you what you wanted, you became angry, and you decided to use legal threats to try to force her to comply with your wishes. Isn't that correct? Jennifer didn't answer. I'm going to ask you directly, Miss Jennifer. Your mother included you in her will. She has given you love and support your entire life. The only reason you're suing her is because she didn't give you more than she gave your siblings. That's the truth, isn't it? No, that's not. Actually, yes, it is. You contacted her lawyer, you threatened legal action, you excluded her from your daughter's wedding, and when she didn't fold under the pressure, you sued her. That's what actually happened here, isn't it? She was manipulated, Jennifer said weakly. By whom specifically? By your brother David? By your brother Richard? What exactly did they do to manipulate her? They convinced her that I was a burden. Did they use specific words? Do you have documentation of this manipulation? No, but no documentation. No specific evidence, just a claim that your brothers somehow magically manipulated your mother into changing her will. Even though your mother is intelligent, educated, works in a hospital, and has been managing her own life perfectly well. Is that really what you expect this court to believe? Jennifer's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Then I was called to testify. I took the stand and told the truth. I explained how Jennifer had been growing distant over the years. I explained the exclusion from Sophie's wedding. I explained the phone call where Jennifer demanded I not attend. I explained the contact with my lawyer. I explained why I decided to change my will. Miss Eleanor, did your son David or your son Richard tell you what to put in your will? No, I made that decision myself. Did they pressure you? Did they threaten you in any way? No. In fact, when I told them what I was planning to do, they were surprised. Richard even suggested that I reconsider. David never pressured me. He was simply supportive. Did you feel pressured by anyone? Yes, by Jennifer. She pressured me by excluding me from Sophie's wedding. She pressured me by contacting my lawyer and making false claims about my mental competency. She pressured me by threatening to contest my will. She pressured me by saying I was a burden and making me feel unwelcome in my own family. That is pressure, Mr. Harrison. That is coercion. And did you change your will because of that pressure? I changed my will because I realized that I have spent my entire life trying to be enough for people who would never find me enough. I decided that it was time to be what I needed for myself. And what I needed was to acknowledge who had actually treated me with love and respect and who had not. The trial lasted 3 days.
The judge took 2 weeks to issue her ruling. In the end, the judge found in my favor. She said that my will was legally sound, that there was no evidence of undue influence, and that my mental competency was unquestionable. She also noted that Jennifer's lawsuit appeared to be motivated by greed rather than genuine concern for my well-being, and she suggested that Jennifer consider more constructive ways to address family conflicts. She did not, however, order Jennifer to pay my legal fees. That was one mercy, I suppose. I had imagined that after the trial, there would be some kind of peace. I had imagined that Jennifer might understand what had happened and might seek reconciliation. I had imagined that we might find a way forward. I was naive. Jennifer disappeared. She didn't call, she didn't send messages, she didn't acknowledge my birthday or the holidays. From the day the verdict came down, she was gone from my life. But that wasn't the end of the story. That was just the beginning of consequences I hadn't anticipated. Jennifer's husband, Michael, did something unexpected. He contacted me. We met at a coffee shop near my home. Michael was a man I had always liked, good-humored, gentle, practical. But now he looked worn down, defeated. "Eleanor, I wanted you to know that I'm filing for divorce," he said without preamble. "Oh, Michael, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause problems in your marriage." "You didn't. Jennifer did." I realized during the lawsuit that I didn't actually know my wife at all. I didn't know she was capable of what she did, suing her own mother, making false claims about mental competency, using the legal system to try to extort money. That's not the woman I married. Or maybe it is, and I just didn't want to see it. "Michael, this isn't your fault." "I know it's not, but I also know that I can't stay with someone who has that kind of darkness inside her. I can't build a life with someone who would treat their own mother that way." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Eleanor, I want you to know that if you ever need anything, I'm here. You've been kinder to me than my own family has been. You welcomed me into your family without condition. I want you to know that I see that. I appreciate that." Michael did follow through on the divorce. It was finalized within a year. He remarried 2 years later to a lovely woman named Susan, and the two of them have been kind and supportive to me ever since. But Jennifer continued forward in her life without acknowledging me. With Jennifer out of my life, something unexpected happened. I became happy, genuinely happy, in a way I hadn't been in years. I no longer woke up worried about Jennifer's moods or trying to think of ways to smooth things over with her. I no longer tried to second-guess what I had done wrong. I no longer felt guilty for simply existing. David and Carol invited me to live with them, and at first I resisted, but eventually I accepted. I moved into the guest house on their property, a small cottage that had belonged to David's parents before they passed away. I had my own space, my own independence, but I was also close to family who loved me. I continued volunteering at the hospital. I took up painting, something I had always wanted to do but never had time for when I was trying to manage Jennifer's emotions. I joined a book club with my girlfriends. I traveled. I went to Italy and France. I sat in cafes and read novels and felt alive in a way I hadn't since my husband died 23 years earlier. And I made peace with myself. I realized that I had spent my entire life trying to be the right kind of mother, the kind who sacrificed everything, the kind who never got angry, the kind who always put her children first. But in doing that, I had modeled a broken way of loving. I had shown Jennifer that it was acceptable to put yourself aside for other people. I had shown her that love meant self-erasure. And she had learned that lesson. She had just applied it differently. Instead of erasing herself for others, she had erased others for herself. But it came from the same place, a profound sense of emptiness that needed to be filled by control or submission or acquisition.
I couldn't fix that for her. I could only take responsibility for my part and commit to being different going forward. 5 years after the trial, Sophie called me. "Grandma, I need to talk to you about something." "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" "I'm pregnant. I wanted you to be the first to know, and I wanted to ask you something. Would you be my baby's godmother?" I cried happy tears. "Sophie, I would be honored, absolutely honored." "There's something else. Mom has been reaching out to me. She wants to have a relationship with me and the baby, and I don't know how to handle it." "What do you want to do?" "I think I want to give her a chance, but I'm scared. I'm scared that she'll hurt you, and I'm scared that she'll hurt me again by withdrawing when things get hard." "Sophie, your mother has serious issues that she needs to address. She needs to take responsibility for her actions. She needs to understand the damage she's caused. But I'm not here to tell you whether or not to have a relationship with her. That's your decision. What I will tell you is that you should not let her hurt you out of guilt or obligation." "What would you do?" Sophie asked. "I would set boundaries. I would be clear about what I will and won't accept. And I would be willing to walk away if those boundaries are violated." "Did you ever consider trying to reconcile with her?" I thought about this carefully. I did. For many years, I wanted to reconcile. But reconciliation requires both parties to take responsibility. Your mother has never acknowledged what she did to me. She has never apologized. She has never taken any responsibility for excluding me or suing me or trying to manipulate my will. Until she does that, there's nothing to reconcile. There's just a continuation of the same dynamic where I shrink myself to accommodate her. "I'm sorry for putting you in this position," Sophie said. "I'm sorry that my mother's actions have affected your relationship with me. Sophie, you have been nothing but kind to me. You have been a light in my life, and I will always love you regardless of what happens between me and your mother." Sophie did eventually develop a cautious relationship with Jennifer. Jennifer started attending some family events. She was cold and distant, but civil. There was never an apology, there was never an acknowledgement of what she had done. But Sophie was able to share her pregnancy and her baby's birth with her mother. And for Sophie's sake, I was gracious when Jennifer was around. 8 years after the trial, I received a letter from Jennifer. No return address, just my name on the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter in Jennifer's familiar handwriting. "Dear Mom, I don't know if you'll read this, I don't know if you'll throw it away, but I'm writing it anyway because I can't carry this anymore. I've spent 8 years trying to understand why you chose David and Richard over me. I've spent 8 years being angry at you. I've spent 8 years blaming you for not loving me enough. But recently, something happened that made me see things differently. Michael called me. He told me he's going to be a grandfather. His new wife's daughter is expecting a baby. And hearing that Michael is going to be in a grandfather's life, be present for his grandchild, reminded me of what I had with you. A grandmother who cared. A grandmother who showed up even when it was hard. A grandmother who I pushed away because I was scared. I understand now that you didn't choose David and Richard over me. You protected yourself from me. You set a boundary that I never thought you were capable of setting, and I see now that that was the most loving thing you could have done, not just for you, but for me. I know that understanding this doesn't fix anything. I know that an apology now, after 8 years, seems hollow and too little too late. I know that I hurt you deeply and that I can't undo that. But I want you to know that I see it now. I see that I was trying to fill an emptiness inside myself by taking from you. I see that I treated you like you were a resource to be exploited rather than a person who deserved love and respect. I see that my anger at you was really just anger at myself, projected onto the person who had loved me most. I've been in therapy for the last 3 years. I started because my marriage was failing, but I stayed because I started to understand myself. And what I understand is that I learned a way of loving that was broken. I learned to be either a martyr or a tyrant.
I learned that relationships were transactions. I learned that love was conditional and had to be earned. And I learned that from observing my own mother, who modeled a kind of self-erasure that I rejected, but which left me with no template for what healthy love looks like. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to suddenly want a relationship with me. I don't expect anything, really. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand, and I'm sorry. With complicated love, Jennifer. I sat with that letter for a long time. I read it many times. And I felt many emotions: sadness that we had lost so much time, anger that it had taken her 8 years to understand, hope that maybe there was a possibility for something different going forward. But I also felt clarity. I called Jennifer. "I got your letter," I said when she answered. "Did you?" Her voice was uncertain. "Yes, and Jennifer, I want you to know that I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful that you finally understand what happened. But I also want to be honest with you about something. Okay, I'm not going to go back to the way things were before. I'm not going to be the mother who shrinks herself to accommodate you. That version of me is gone, and I'm happier now than I've ever been. I know, I understand. But I am willing to have a relationship with you now, a different kind of relationship. One where we both have boundaries. One where we both take responsibility for ourselves. One where I am not responsible for filling your emptiness, and you are not responsible for validating me. Can you do that?" "I think so," Jennifer said quietly. "I think I can try." "Okay, then let's start there. You can come to dinner next month. I'll make that chicken dish you used to like, and we can see if we can build something real from this point forward." Jennifer cried on the phone. I cried a little too. It wasn't reconciliation in the sense that we wiped away the past and pretended it never happened. It wasn't forgiveness in the sense that I forgot about the lawsuit or the exclusion or the manipulation. It was simply two people who shared history, who had both been damaged by that history, deciding to try to move forward differently. I'm 81 years old now. Jennifer is 56. We have dinner together once a month. We have a cordial relationship. We are not close, but we are no longer hostile. Jennifer has never acknowledged that she was wrong about the will or the lawsuit or the exclusion from Sophie's wedding, but she also no longer brings those things up. She has never explicitly apologized, but she apologized implicitly by changing her behavior. It's not the relationship I might have hoped for when she was a child, but it's a relationship that works because it's built on truth instead of illusion. Sophie's daughter is now 3 years old, and I spend time with her regularly. Sophie has told me that she's grateful that I set boundaries with her mother because it showed her that she could do the same. She's told me that my example gave her permission to take care of herself. Michael remarried to Susan, and they are happy together. They visit me regularly and have become like adopted children to me. David and Richard have both continued to be wonderful sons and brothers. And I have continued to paint, to travel, to volunteer, to live. On good days, I think about the years I spent trying to be enough for Jennifer, and I feel sad that they were wasted on someone who could not receive what I was offering. But I also feel gratitude that I finally learned to stop wasting them. On hard days, I think about what I could have done differently as a mother, and I feel guilt. But then I remember, I did the best I could with the knowledge I had, and when I learned something different, I changed. That's all any of us can do. I tell my story now to other elderly women, some of whom are going through similar situations with their children. I tell them that they are not responsible for fixing their adult children's broken sense of worth. I tell them that setting boundaries is not betrayal, it's self-preservation. I tell them that the greatest gift they can give their children is the example of self-respect. Some of them listen, some of them don't. But I tell them anyway, because the truth matters. And maybe, just maybe, one of them will understand that they deserve to be loved completely and without condition. They deserve to have their boundaries respected.
They deserve to have a life that is about more than managing other people's emotions. They deserve to be whole, just like I finally learned I deserve to be.